All of them can hear you.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2015 horror sequel Insidious Chapter 3. The film is written and directed by Leigh Whannell and it stars Dermot Mulroney, Stephanie Scott, Lynn Shay, Leigh Whannell and Angus Sampson. Now this is a prequel, so we've had the first two films focused on the Lambert family, and I have reviewed them on channel. I did a double review for them two films a number of years ago. Just seen Insidious the Red Door, quite enjoyed that, so I said on that review that I would visit Insidious Chapter 3 and Insidious Chapter 4, The Last Key, which I hadn't seen 3 or 4 before. Now, the reason for that is sometimes I don't like franchises, successful franchises. You get a couple of solid films, then they kind of go off on a tangent, and they get filtered down as each sequel goes on. But I've heard from reliable people that Insidious is one of those franchises so far that has never given a bad film. So I thought I would take the plunge and certainly watch the third one first, which I have now. And as I've said, this is a prequel. And it focuses on the Brenner family, in particular a teenage girl called Quinn and her father, Sean, played by Dermot Mulroney. She has lost her mother a year and a half previously. She goes to see Lynn Shay's character, Elise, to ask to try and connect to her mother. Elise has taken a step back from being a medium because she's fearing for her life at this point and she's lost her husband and she's feeling a bit lost. And while she does agree to help her initially, immediately after kind of going into the further, she's assaulted Elise, so she kind of backs off. However, something is unlocked and has connected itself to Quinn that puts her in immediate danger, and it is up to her father and family and Elise to try and save her life. Right. What are my thoughts on Insidious Chapter 3? Well, I have to say this film absolutely keeps up the tradition of well-placed and well-executed jump scares. I think the Insidious franchise now has become synonymous with, really loud and shocking jump scares. A lot of them work really well. Case of point, obviously, is the first one with the demon face behind Patrick Wilson and a few other bits and pieces. And same with the second, and I'm certainly happy to report this one as well. There are some nicely constructed and executed jump scares here that continue the excellence of the series, if you like. And while this film does feel at times like very separate to the first two films, it does slowly kind of build the bridges, to those first two movies, and shows you how it's kind of going to lead on to her involvement in those first two films. For example, the entity in this film that is intent on killing her is the entity we meet in the first film. That's kind of that black bride sort of thing with the black netting and things on. So it kind of links the films in that way. We are exposed to a little bit more of the further here and how Elise is able to explore it and so on and so forth. I think where this film kind of drops the ball a little bit is it's a little bit clumsy in how it introduces like Tucker and Specs, the two guys that end up working with Elise. That's quite clumsily introduced. Also, how the father comes to believe, I think, is a little bit too convenient and is a little bit too fast, you know what I mean? Or he believes that almost immediately that his daughter's in danger, but in danger from supernatural elements, sort of thing. And I think it gets a little bit melodramatic by the end. For me, anyway, it just felt like it was, stretching the melodrama a little bit too much by the end. But I did enjoy this film. I thought it was a nicely made and executed film. And I do think Leigh Whannell is a pretty talented director. He's proven that with this. He has also, from my memory anyway, has directed. Did he direct Upgrade? I'm sure he did. Let me just check. Yes, he did. Upgrade and The Invisible Man. So there's talent here with this director for sure. And this was obviously his first film that he directed. He's been involved in writing the Insidious franchise from the beginning. He's obviously collaborated with James Wan, and he created the characters that we are exposed to in these Insidious films. So he's obviously proven he's got directing chops, and this film definitely feels like it's like a seamless sequel to the first two, even though the Lambert family are not involved. So it does a pretty decent job, this film, of doing that. There are some quite shocking scenes in it as well. There's one that involving like an accident where Quinn, essentially, who is starting to experience things, is involved in an accident that made me almost jump 6 feet off the sofa when I watched it. That was done really well. There's a couple of clever moments where, you know, she's tapping on the wall thinking she's communicating with this handsome boy who thinks she's nice, and she's not, sort of thing. And then there's a couple of cliched scenes, you know, the usual looking under the bed scene, the usual looking out the window and seeing something right at the bottom, and then, you know, the expected jump scare happens, sort of thing. So while there are some effective jump scares here, there are also a number of jump scares that you can predict, and they don't necessarily have the impact that the director probably wanted. But all the jump scares, for the most part, feel earned. You know, I can't stand those horror movies that like put the cheap jump scares in with the cats jumping out of cupboards, and you know what I mean? It's just so dull when people do that sort of thing now. At least this film doesn't do that. You know, it does try to present the scares in a fairly effective way. And there are moments in this film where you will be genuinely frightened, I suppose. I mean, you won't be, you know, shaking in your boots or anything like that. I don't think any of the Insidious films do that sort of thing. But I think they all, you know, are pretty effective and well-made horror films. And also, interestingly, the guy they cast here in this film as the villain, so like the entity in this film is like a guy that walks around with like tar on his feet, and he's got like a gas mask on, sort of thing, for his breathing. Excuse me. The director said, apparently, that he wanted this demon to represent the guy from the film Seven. You know, the guy that was, I think it was the guy on the bed, you know, that was like left to kind of rot away and ended up still being alive. I think it was him. He wanted it to represent him and what he looked like. So he went and cast the actor that did that role in Seven, which I thought was really clever and really smart. And it is very, very creepy, the entity in this film. Slow and methodical, but certainly pretty creepy for sure. So, yeah, I was impressed with this one. I don't think it's just up to the standard, obviously, the first two. But it is definitely, I think, on par with Insidious The Red Door that I've just recently seen. So I'm actually quite looking forward to checking out the fourth film now. The Last Key, is it? Chapter 4, whatever they call it. So, yeah, let me know in the comments, guys, what your thoughts on the Insidious franchise. And don't forget to call back on the channel for plenty more reviews and content very, very soon.